I stared at my screen in disbelief. There he was, my husband of 7 years, kissing another woman on a beach that was supposed to be our anniversary destination. The worst part? I was still standing at the airport terminal, exhausted after a 4-hour wait, holding the handmade gift I'd spent weeks perfecting. My phone buzzed with his third excuse, stuck in traffic, babe. That's when I decided, two can play this game. 4 hours earlier, I'd been buzzing with excitement. 7 years of marriage, and Ryan still made my heart flutter. We'd been planning this second honeymoon to Bali for months, his idea, surprisingly. 7 years deserves something special, he'd said with that smile that still melted me. I'd arrived at the airport ridiculously early, my suitcase meticulously packed with new sundresses and that blue bikini he loved. My hair was freshly highlighted, nails done in the exact shade of turquoise that matched the resort photos. I even wore the perfume from our wedding day. The handmade anniversary gift sat in my carry-on, a leather-bound photo album chronicling our journey together. Ticket stubs from our first date, pressed flowers from his proposals, Polaroids from vacations, and little notes describing my favorite memories of us. Each page had taken hours, each caption written and rewritten until perfect. The final page read, "To the next 7 years and beyond." The first hour of waiting, I browsed duty-free shops, sampling perfumes I couldn't afford and picking up his favorite snacks for the flight. The second hour, I texted him, "Where are you? Check-in closes soon." "Traffic is insane." "Almost there," came his reply. By the third hour, I'd called 6 times. Straight to voicemail. My messages showed as delivered but unread. I'd befriended the elderly couple next to me who kept giving me sympathetic looks as I checked my phone every 30 seconds. "I'm sure he's just caught up, dear," the woman said, patting my hand. Her husband harumphed something about young men these days that I pretended not to hear. The fourth hour brought the announcement I'd been dreading: final boarding call for flight BA207 to Denpasar, Bali. I stood at the gate, tears welling up as passengers filed past me. The flight attendant gave me that look, pity mixed with impatience. "I'm sorry, but we need to close the doors." I nodded, clutching my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. That's when his third message came through: "Stuck in terrible traffic, babe. Not going to make it. You go ahead, I'll catch tomorrow's flight. Love you." Standing in the now empty terminal, I felt hollow. I'd have to collect my checked luggage, find a taxi, and head home to our empty apartment. The thought was unbearable. I slumped into a chair, the gift album heavy on my lap. This wasn't the first time Ryan had stood me up, but it was certainly the most expensive and humiliating instance. My phone pinged with a notification. Melissa, Ryan's co-worker, had tagged him in a photo on Instagram. I clicked it absently, expecting some office party or team lunch. The image loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, like a horror revealing itself in slow motion. Golden sand. Turquoise water. Ryan's distinctive tribal tattoo on a tanned arm draped around a woman with caramel highlights. Their faces pressed together, sunglasses hiding their eyes but not their smiles. His lips on hers, caught mid-kiss. The caption read, "Paradise found. #couple goals #Bali #secret getaway. Posted 3 hours ago." My ears rang. The terminal spun around me. I zoomed in on the photo, desperate to find some explanation. Maybe it was an old picture. Maybe it wasn't really him. But there was no denying the watch I'd given him last Christmas. Or the new swim trunks I'd packed for him just yesterday, now apparently enjoying Bali without me. I scrolled to the location tag, the Banyan Tree Resort, Bali. The exact resort where we were supposed to be staying. Our dream vacation. Our second honeymoon. The betrayal hit me in waves. He wasn't stuck in traffic. He wasn't coming tomorrow. He was already there, with her. As if on cosmic cue, my phone buzzed again with a text from Ryan: "Miss you already. The apartment feels empty without you." A laugh escaped my lips, a strange, strangled sound that startled an airport janitor walking past. He wasn't even creative enough to craft different lies for his wife and his mistress. That's when anger replaced shock. 7 years of marriage, And this was how he repaid my loyalty? The gift album suddenly felt like a joke, a pathetic testament to my blindness. My fingers hovered over my phone. I could call him out. I could threaten and scream. I could post the screenshot and tag everyone we knew. Instead, I opened the airline app and did something he'd never expect. One ticket to Bali, please. Earliest available flight. If Ryan thought he could have paradise without consequences, he was about to learn otherwise. The taxi driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Change of plans. I looked down at my wedding ring, twisting it thoughtfully. No, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. Just a change in perspective. The red-eye flight to Bali gave me plenty of time to think. To remember. To piece together how we'd arrived at this moment. I met Ryan Morrison at a charity gala 7 years ago. I was catering the event, rushing between tables with trays of champagne flutes, when I tripped on the hem of a guest's designer gown. The tray went flying, and so did I, directly into Ryan's arms. If you wanted my attention, you could have just said hello, he joked, steadying me while somehow managing to catch 2 glasses mid-air. The entire ballroom applauded. I'd wanted to disappear from embarrassment, but Ryan kept hold of my elbow, leaned in, and whispered, "Play along. Bo. They'll think it was intentional." So we did, bowed together like performers after a dangerous stunt. The crowd laughed, the moment passed, and I thought that would be it. But he found me in the kitchen later, slipped me his business card, and said, "I've never met someone who could make disaster look so graceful." That was Ryan, charming, quick-thinking, turning my worst moment into something that felt special. I fell hard and fast. Our early days were a montage of perfect moments, surprise picnics in the park, weekend road trips to the coast, dancing barefoot in our first tiny apartment. We'd stay up all night talking about our dreams, his ambitions to climb the corporate ladder, my passion for photography that I pursued on weekends while keeping my day job. "Someday," he'd promised, tucking my hair behind my ear, "you'll have your own gallery. I'll make sure of it." The ring came at sunrise on a hot air balloon ride. I cried. He cried. It was everything I'd dreamed of. Then things changed, so gradually I hardly noticed. His promotion meant longer hours. My encouragement meant taking on more of the household responsibilities so he could focus on work. His business trips grew more frequent. My camera gathered dust. "It's temporary," he'd say, kissing me goodbye at 5 a.m. before another flight. "We're building our future." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was making both our dreams come true, or so I thought. The first Real crack appeared 3 years in. Ryan forgot our anniversary, completely. No card, no call, nothing. When he came home past midnight, he found me asleep on the couch, dinner cold on the table, makeup smudged from crying. "I'm so sorry, Myra," he'd said, genuinely horrified. The Tokyo deal, it was all hands on deck. I lost track of days. His gift the next day, an expensive camera lens I'd been eyeing for months, smoothed things over. That became our pattern, disappointment followed by expensive apologies. Then came the fertility struggles. Month after month of hope and heartbreak. Tests. Specialists. Scheduled intimacy that felt clinical rather than loving. "It'll happen," he'd say, but with less conviction each time. The subject became taboo between us. We stopped trying, not officially, but in all the ways that mattered. I was at my lowest when he suggested I quit my day job. "Focus on your photography," he'd said. "We're financially secure now. You don't need the stress." It felt like a lifeline. I took it, grateful that he still believed in my dreams when I'd almost forgotten them myself. 6 months later, his company announced a transfer to their Singapore office. 2 years, excellent career move, substantial raise. The unspoken expectation was that I would go too. "Think of the photography opportunities," he'd said. "The architecture, the gardens, it's perfect for you." I left behind my budding client list, my local connections, my photography workshop that had just started gaining traction. For him. For us. Singapore was beautiful but lonely. Ryan worked constantly. I spent days wandering with my camera, capturing strangers' lives while mine felt increasingly empty. That's when Jessica entered the picture, literally. Ryan's new executive assistant, fresh out of business school, ambitious and whip-smart. She appeared in his Instagram posts from office events, always professionally dressed but undeniably gorgeous. "She's brilliant," he'd say. "Reminds me of you, actually, same drive, same eye for detail." I chose to take it as a compliment. The late nights grew later. The business trips more frequent. When I'd call, I'd sometimes hear laughter in the background that would abruptly stop. "Just the team working late," he'd explain. "These deadline pushes are brutal." I found a long blonde hair on his suit jacket once. He said it must be from the hotel dry cleaning. There was the time his credit card statement showed a dinner for two at a restaurant he'd claimed was a business meeting with clients. "Must be an accounting error," he'd said dismissively. "You know how expense reports get mixed up." His phone became his most guarded possession. Passwords changed monthly. He'd excuse himself to take calls, speaking in hushed tones from our balcony. My best friend, Layla, visiting from home, noticed immediately. "Something's off with him, Myra," she'd said gently. "You deserve better than this." I defended him fiercely. Called her jealous, negative, unsupportive. We didn't speak for months after. Maybe the worst part was how skillfully he'd turned my suspicions against me. When I'd question a late night or an inconsistency in his stories, he'd look at me with such concern. "Are you okay?" he'd ask. "You haven't been yourself since the fertility issues. Maybe you should talk to someone." And just like that, I'd become the problem. The unstable one. The wife whose insecurities were burdening our marriage. I didn't see how masterfully he'd manipulated me until I was 30,000 feet above the Pacific, scrolling through our past with newly opened eyes. The same patterns, over and over again: absence, excuses, deflection, expensive gifts, brief improvements, then back to the beginning. The flight attendant touched my shoulder gently. "Would you like some water?" I realized I'd been crying silently, tears sliding down my cheeks unchecked. "Yes," I said, accepting the cup with trembling hands. "And do you have any wine?" "Red, please." I raised the plastic cup in a silent toast to the clouds below. To 7 years of love and lies. To the wife I'd been and the woman I was becoming. Somewhere below, on a perfect Balinese beach, Ryan had no idea what was coming. The Banyan Tree Resort was exactly as pictured in the brochure. Paradise incarnate with its pristine beaches, swaying palms, and crystal waters. Precisely where my husband was currently enjoying his secret vacation with another woman. I approached the mahogany check-in desk with practiced composure, oversized sunglasses hiding my puffy eyes. The overnight flight had left me exhausted, but adrenaline kept me upright. "Welcome to Banyan Tree," the receptionist greeted warmly. "May I have your name?" "Morrison," I said, sliding my passport across the counter. "Myra Morrison. My husband should have checked in yesterday." Her fingers tapped at the keyboard. "Ah, yes, oh." Her smile faltered. "There seems to be some confusion. Mr. Morrison checked in with a guest already. The honeymoon package." I forced a bright laugh. "Yes, that's correct. He arrived early for some surprise preparations. I was delayed due to work." The lie came easier than expected. "He's probably out exploring. I'd like my own key, please." She hesitated, professional training warring with obvious suspicion. "Mrs. Morrison, I don't mean to pry, but our system shows the second guest already checked in." Of course. His sister Jessica joined him first to help set up my surprise. I leaned forward conspirationally. "It's our anniversary. I wasn't supposed to arrive until tomorrow, but I finished work early. I'm surprising him back." The receptionist's face softened. "How romantic. Let me arrange a welcome amenity for your room." 10 minutes later, I was being escorted to their villa by a cheerful porter who chatted about resort activities while I nodded mechanically. Each step toward the beachfront suite tightened the knot in my stomach. "Will you be joining the couple's sunset photography session this evening?" he asked. Our resort photographer captures beautiful moments. Perhaps, I murmured, barely registering his words until he mentioned photography. Dario is brilliant. He's won awards for his work with National Geographic. The porter beamed with obvious pride. He says this resort has perfect natural lighting. My interest peaked despite the circumstances. Photography had been my passion before I'd packed it away like so many other parts of myself. Is he a full-time staff member? 6 months of the year. The rest, he travels for assignments. The porter stopped before an elegant wooden door. Here we are, Villa 16. Your private paradise. He opened the door and set down my luggage. I tipped him generously, more out of anxiety than generosity, and finally stood alone in the immaculate villa. Evidence of occupancy was everywhere. Ryan's familiar cologne hanging in the air, an open suitcase tossed carelessly across a chaise lounge, women's sandals kicked off by the door. A champagne bottle nestled in a melting ice bucket. 2 glasses with lipstick smudges. I stood frozen, reality crashing over me in nauseating waves. This wasn't some misunderstanding or poorly timed business trip. This was deliberate betrayal. I stumbled onto the veranda overlooking the private plunge pool and beach access. Sunlight glinted off the water, mockingly perfect. I gripped the railing, knuckles white, wondering what the protocol was for wives discovering their husband's infidelity in 5-star resorts. Is there a manual for this? A helpline? Press 1 if your spouse is currently with their lover elsewhere on the property. A hysterical laugh bubbled up and escaped my lips, startling a nearby bird into flight. That's either a very good laugh or a very bad one. I whirled around. A man stood on the adjacent veranda, camera hanging from his neck. Tall, with sun-darkened skin and arms covered in colorful tattoo sleeves that disappeared under his rolled-up linen shirt. I didn't mean to intrude, he continued, his accent vaguely European. Professional hazard, I'm attuned to unusual sounds. The resort photographer, I said flatly. He offered a small bow. Dario Salvatore, capturer of fake smiles and awkward poses since 2010. His own smile faded as he studied me. Though you look like you could use a friend more than a photographer right now. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who spends their life observing people. He gestured toward my ring finger, where I was unconsciously twisting my wedding band. Plus, you keep looking at that door like you're expecting either salvation or damnation to walk through it. I laughed again, less hysterically this time. Definitely the latter. Ah. Understanding dawned in his eyes. The infamous not actually a business trip situation. How did you? I photograph hundreds of couples every year. I see the real ones, the honeymoon ones, and the... He searched for the word, extracurricular ones. His bluntness was oddly comforting. No pitying looks, no awkward euphemisms. Do you know which beach they're on? I asked suddenly. His eyebrows shot up. Planning a dramatic confrontation? I should warn you, the lighting is harsh this time of day. Terrible for photographs. Or crime scene documentation. Despite everything, I smiled. No confrontation. Not yet. I just need to see. To be sure. Dario studied me for a long moment, then nodded decisively. I have a better idea. I'm scheduled to photograph the romantic beach picnic package in 30 minutes. Your husband and his companion booked it yesterday. My heart hammered. And I could use an assistant. He patted his camera. Someone to carry equipment, adjust lighting. You'd be practically invisible behind the reflector screens. Why would you help me? His expression darkened momentarily. Let's just say I've stood on both sides of a betrayal. Neither view is pretty, but knowledge is preferable to doubt. He extended his hand across the narrow gap between our verandas. Partners. I hesitated only briefly before reaching out. Partners. As his warm hand clasped mine, I felt the first genuine smile in days stretch across my face. Fair warning though, Dario added with a mischievous glint, I'm a terrible influence and an excellent accomplice. For the first time since seeing that Instagram photo, I felt something besides despair. It wasn't quite hope, more like its scrappier cousin, determination. I never imagined I'd be crouching behind a giant reflector screen on a Balinese beach, watching my husband feed chocolate-covered strawberries to his mistress through a camera lens. Yet here I was, playing photographer's assistant to a tattooed stranger while documenting my own marital catastrophe. "Hold the reflector higher," Dario whispered. "And try to breathe. You look like you might pass out." I realized I'd been holding my breath. Exhaling slowly, I adjusted the silver panel as instructed, my hands trembling slightly. Through Dario's viewfinder, Ryan and Jessica looked like a perfect couple from a luxury travel magazine. He wore linen shorts and an open shirt that revealed the chest I'd rested my head against countless nights. She was stunning in a white sundress, her caramel highlights dancing in the breeze. They sat on a pristine blanket surrounded by champagne, tropical fruits, and flowers, the romantic beach picnic package we'd booked for our anniversary. "You're doing great," Dario murmured, snapping photos with professional detachment. "Remember, you're gathering information, not staging an intervention." When Dario had suggested this plan, it seemed brilliant: observe them undetected, process my emotions privately, then decide my next move. But watching Ryan brush Jessica's hair from her face with the same tenderness he'd once shown me was like swallowing broken glass. "Just a few more," Dario said, his tone softening. "You're stronger than you think." I nodded mutely as Ryan leaned in to kiss Jessica. The camera clicked rapidly, immortalizing my humiliation in high definition. "Beautiful," Dario called out to them, switching to his professional persona. "Now face the sunset, please." "Yes, perfect." Ryan wrapped his arm around Jessica, both gazing at the horizon like love-struck models. I recognized his expression, genuinely happy, relaxed. When was the last time he'd looked at me that way? "I think we have everything we need," Dario announced, lowering his camera. "The resort will send these to your room tonight, Mr. Williams," Ryan replied smoothly. "James Williams. A fake name. Of course. Enjoy the rest of your evening." Dario began packing his equipment, gesturing for me to do the same. As we retreated across the sand, I heard Jessica's delighted laugh. "These photos will be amazing, baby. Should we send one to your parents? They'll be so happy we finally took their advice about Bali." His parents knew? The same in-laws who'd spent 7 Christmases pretending to like me? I stumbled, nearly dropping the reflector. Dario caught my elbow, steering me firmly around a bend in the shoreline until we were out of sight. "Breathe, Myra," he instructed, setting down his equipment and guiding me to sit on a driftwood log. "Head between your knees if you need to." I didn't cry. I'd expected to, but instead felt a strange, icy clarity spreading through my chest. "His parents know," I said flatly. "They probably never liked me at all." Dario sat beside me, offering a water bottle from his bag. "People can be incredibly adept at compartmentalizing their lives. It doesn't reflect on you." 7 years, I whispered, staring at the ocean. "We've been married 7 years, and he introduced her as his wife. Using a fake name in a resort we chose together." "What do you want to do?" Dario asked, no judgment in his voice. "Confront them now? Wait. There's no rulebook for this." I considered my options. The old Myra would have rushed over, created a scene, begged for explanations while mascara streaked down her face. But that Myra seemed distant now, like a character in someone else's story. "I'm going to attend the couple's dinner tonight," I said, surprising myself. Dario's eyebrows rose. "Bold move. Want me to photograph that too? I'm not officially working, but for this, I'd make an exception." I laughed despite everything. No cameras. But I could use some moral support. "Consider it done." He hesitated. "Though you should know, these resort dinners are absurdly romantic. Candlelight, violinists, the works. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Was I? The thought of watching Ryan romance another woman through a 5-course meal made my stomach clench. But hiding in my villa seemed worse somehow. I need to see who he is with her, I said finally. The real Ryan, not the version he shows me. Dario nodded, understanding in his eyes. The resort arranges seating by surname. If you go as Morrison, you'll likely be seated far from the Williamses. Actually, I said, a plan forming, I think I'll join their table directly. Now that, Dario said with newfound respect, I would pay to see. Back at my villa, I spent hours preparing. Not in the frantic, tearful way I'd imagined, but with methodical purpose. I showered away the airplane grime and beach sand. Applied makeup with steady hands. Chose the black dress Ryan had always loved but rarely saw because it remained packed for special occasions that never materialized. I studied my reflection, cheekbones sharper than they'd been 7 years ago, eyes older but clearer somehow. This woman looking back at me hadn't come for a reconciliation. She'd come for the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan to my regular number. Miss you, babe. The conference is dragging. How's your sister doing? Another lie. I didn't even have a sister. I slipped my phone into my clutch alongside the room key and my wedding ring, which I'd removed for the first time in 7 years. Not wearing it felt strange, my finger lighter, my hand somehow more my own. A knock at the door announced Dario, elegant in a simple black suit, respect in his eyes as he took in my transformation. You look like a woman with a plan, he said. Not revenge, I clarified. Just reckoning. He offered his arm. Then let's go reckon. The resort's oceanfront restaurant was a vision of tropical romance. Tables draped in white linen, tiki torches flickering against the darkening sky, a string quartet playing quietly in the corner. Couples sat hand in hand, feeding each other bites of exotic delicacies, lost in their private bubbles of affection. Dario and I paused at the entrance, his hand resting lightly on my back, supportive but not possessive. Last chance to back out, he murmured. I shook my head, scanning the room until I spotted them. Ryan looked handsome in a light blue shirt that I'd packed for him just days ago. Jessica wore a red dress that complemented her olive skin perfectly. They were laughing over champagne, his hand resting on hers atop the table. Table 17, I whispered to Dario. By the railing. The maître d' approached with a practiced smile. Good evening. Name, please. We'll be joining the Williamses, I said smoothly. Table 17. He checked his tablet with a slight frown. I don't see. A late edition? The gentleman mentioned it might be a party of 3 or 4. Of course Ryan had covered his bases, probably told the staff his business associate might join them. Always the meticulous planner. That's us, Dario confirmed with easy charm. The maître d' led us through the restaurant. I felt strangely calm, as if watching myself from a distance. The quartet transitioned to a melody I recognized, our wedding song. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. We were nearly at the table when Ryan glanced up, mid-laugh. Our eyes locked. The blood drained from his face so rapidly I thought he might faint. Jessica, noticing his expression, turned to follow his gaze. Surprise, I said softly, taking the empty seat beside her while Dario sat opposite Ryan. Myra. Ryan stammered, his voice barely audible. What are you? How did you find you? I finished for him, signaling a waiter. I'd love a glass of champagne, please. We're celebrating. Jessica looked between us, confusion clouding her perfect features. James, who is this? James. I echoed, arching an eyebrow at Ryan. Is that what he's calling himself these days? Ryan's jaw worked soundlessly, his usual smooth confidence shattered. I'd never seen him so utterly lost for words. I'm Myra, I said, turning to Jessica with a smile that felt foreign on my face. Ryan's wife of 7 years. And you must be Jessica, his executive assistant. I've heard so much about your professional capabilities. Jessica's confusion morphed into horror. She turned to Ryan, her voice trembling. Wife? You said you were divorced. You showed me the papers. He showed you papers. I laughed, the sound brittle even to my own ears. That's new. Usually, he just tells women I'm dead or imaginary. Dario, silent until now, leaned forward. Perhaps we should order? The seafood here is exceptional. Almost as fishy as this situation. Ryan finally found his voice. Myra, let me explain. Actually, I interrupted, I'm more interested in Jessica's side of the story. Tell me, how long has this been going on? Jessica's eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling. 8 months. But he said you two had been separated for over a year. That the divorce was just paperwork. She fumbled in her purse, extracting folded documents. He gave me these, said they were filed last summer. I accepted the papers, recognizing them immediately, our life insurance policy, with a few altered pages. The man I'd trusted with 7 years of my life hadn't even bothered to forge convincing divorce papers. 8 months, I repeated quietly. Right around when we were trying for a baby. Jessica's head snapped up. A baby? You were, she pushed back from the table violently. You son of a bitch. The restaurant fell silent, all eyes turning to our table. Ryan reached for her arm. Jess, please. She yanked away. Don't touch me. Was anything you told me true? Anything at all? I should have felt vindicated seeing Ryan squirm, watching his carefully constructed house of lies collapse. Instead, I felt oddly connected to Jessica, both of us victims of the same skilled manipulator. For what it's worth, I said to her, I don't blame you. He's very convincing. Her eyes met mine, woman to woman, a moment of raw understanding passing between us. Did you know, she asked, her voice steadying, about the condo he bought in Singapore? Using your inheritance money. The champagne glass froze halfway to my lips. My inheritance? That's impossible. It's in a separate account he can't access. Jessica gave a bitter laugh. He had you add him as a signatory last year. Something about simplifying your finances for the fertility treatments. The memory surfaced, signing papers at the bank while distracted by another failed pregnancy test. Ryan's reassurances that it was just administrative housekeeping. The developer's congratulatory gift basket arrived at the office last month, Jessica continued. 2-bedroom waterfront property. $3 million. The room tilted slightly. Dario's hand appeared at my elbow, steadying me. 3 million. I whispered. That's everything my grandmother left me. Ryan's face had gone from white to gray. Myra, it was an investment for our future. For when we eventually moved back. Our future. Jessica cut in. You mean the future you promised me? The one where we'd live in that condo once your transfer was approved. I watched Ryan's face, waiting for the denial, the explanation, the silver-tongued rationalization that had smoothed over countless inconsistencies before. Instead, he buried his face in his hands. I think, Dario said quietly, this dinner might be over. As if on cue, my phone rang. The screen displayed, Sutherland Law Firm. My family's attorney, calling at this exact moment? I answered, hearing the familiar voice of Thomas Sutherland. Mrs. Morrison? I've been trying to reach you. There's been unusual activity on your inheritance account. Multiple large withdrawals. Given your grandmother's protections, I needed to verify. No, I said, my voice suddenly strong. I did not authorize any withdrawals. And I think I'm going to need a very good divorce lawyer. The next morning dawned with offensive perfection, azure skies, gentle breeze, paradise mocking my personal hell. I sat cross-legged on my villa's bed, surrounded by printouts of bank statements, property documents, and email correspondence that Jessica had forwarded to me last night. The picture they painted was worse than I'd imagined. Ryan hadn't just stolen my inheritance, he'd built an entire shadow life with it. You're sure about this? Dario asked, handing me a cup of coffee. He'd shown up at 7 a.m. with breakfast and moral support, becoming an unexpected anchor in my capsizing world. Absolutely. I signed the last document with a flourish, authorizing Thomas Sutherland to freeze all accounts and pursue emergency legal action. Ryan lands in Singapore tomorrow for his business meeting. By then, he'll find his access revoked to everything: the condo, the offshore accounts, even his company email. After the restaurant confrontation, Ryan had tried following me, pleading his case in increasingly desperate tones. Jessica had disappeared immediately, but not before transferring every incriminating document she had to my email. I'd ignored Ryan's calls and texts, barricading myself in my villa to assess the damage. "It's impressive how quickly you've mobilized," Dario observed, leaning against the doorframe. 7 years of supporting his career taught me something about efficiency. I smiled grimly. Plus, rage is an excellent motivator. My phone buzzed with an incoming FaceTime call, Ryan's mother. I stared at the screen, torn between ignoring it and unleashing 7 years of accumulated grievances. "You should answer," Dario suggested. "She may not know you've discovered everything." I accepted the call, arranging my features into a neutral expression. "Myra." "Thank goodness." Eleanor Morrison's elegantly aging face filled the screen, her usual poise replaced by visible distress. "Is Ryan with you?" "He's not answering his phone." "No, Eleanor. Ryan isn't with me." I kept my tone deliberately light. "Have you tried checking the Banyan Tree Resort in Bali? Under the name James Williams." Her sharp intake of breath confirmed what I'd suspected: she knew about Jessica. "Oh, Myra. I'm so sorry." The practiced society matron facade crumbled. I told him this behavior had to stop. After what happened with that flight attendant last year and the realtor before that. "Flight attendant?" I interrupted, my stomach dropping. "Realtor?" Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. "You didn't know about them either." "Apparently, there's quite a lot I didn't know," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Like how my husband used my inheritance to buy property for his mistress. Or how his parents, who I spent 7 Christmases trying to impress, knew he was cheating repeatedly and said nothing. We thought it was just indiscretions, not theft." She had the grace to look ashamed. "Financial criminal behavior is different." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you prioritize protecting your son over warning his wife about the indiscretions that could have given me an STD." Eleanor winced. "That's not fair. We tried talking to him." "Not hard enough." My voice finally broke. "Do you know what's really unfair, Eleanor? Watching your fertility doctor explain that your husband missed 6 appointments because he was stuck at work when he was actually with other women. That's unfair." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I never wanted this for you, Myra. You have to believe that." "What I believe doesn't matter anymore," I said, suddenly exhausted. "What matters is what I do now. I've already contacted my lawyer. Ryan will be served divorce papers by the end of the week." "We'll testify," she said unexpectedly. "William and I. About his pattern of behavior. About the conversations where he admitted to using your money." I hadn't expected that. "Why would you turn against your son?" "Because we failed you by protecting him for too long," she said simply. "And because we raised him better than this." After ending the call, I sat in stunned silence. Dario gave me space, busying himself with gathering the scattered paperwork. "I've been played for a fool by everyone," I finally said. "His parents, his colleagues who must have known, even the fertility doctor probably pitied me." "You weren't a fool," Dario countered. "You were betrayed by people who should have protected you. There's a difference." My phone chimed with a notification, a series of increasingly frantic texts from Ryan. "What did you do?" "The condo access is denied. The bank says there's a freeze on our accounts. Fix this now. My boss just called. They know about the company funds I borrowed. Myra, this isn't funny. My card was just declined at the resort. I'm stranded here." A hysterical laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep in my chest. After 7 years of making everything work for him, his career, his social life, his image, I'd finally broken the machinery. "He's panicking," I said, showing Dario the messages. "Good." Dario's smile was fierce. "What's next on your revenge tour?" "Not revenge," I corrected, though the distinction felt increasingly semantic. Justice. I opened my laptop, navigating to my dormant photography website. The login still worked. The bio still read, Myra Morrison, capturing life's perfect moments. Perfect moments. What a joke. I began typing a new bio, Myra Chen. Documenting truth, not perfection. My maiden name felt foreign but right on the screen. Like shrugging off a coat that had never quite fit. Chen. Dario read over my shoulder. Returning to your roots. Returning to myself, I corrected. Starting with this. I uploaded a new portfolio, stark, honest images I'd taken during my lonely Singapore days. Urban isolation. Expatriate wives staring into middle distance at coffee shops. The series I'd titled Invisible Women, that Ryan had dismissed as too depressing. These are extraordinary, Dario said quietly. You have real talent. I know, I replied, surprising myself with the absence of modesty or doubt. I've always known. My phone rang again, Thomas Sutherland with updates on the legal proceedings. As I reached to answer it, Ryan's newest text flashed on the screen. Please, Myra. I'm begging you. I can explain everything. I love you. I declined his call and answered my lawyer's instead, feeling lighter than I had in years. 3 months after Bali, I stood in my new apartment surrounded by moving boxes and the unfamiliar sensation of complete autonomy. The place was half the size of the luxury condo Ryan and I had shared in Singapore, but entirely mine, from the mismatched furniture to the gallery wall of my photographs that dominated the living room. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, court date confirmed. Ready to testify. How are you holding up? The most unexpected outcome of Ryan's betrayal had been the unlikely alliance between his two victims. Jessica had been just as deceived as I was, perhaps more, given the elaborately forged documents he'd created to convince her our marriage was over. Nervous but prepared, I replied. Dinner next week after it's done? She sent back a thumbs up and a wine glass emoji. Our monthly survivors' dinners had become a ritual, a space to process the ongoing fallout from Hurricane Ryan. 2 other women had joined our circle after the news broke, Amelia, the flight attendant, and Catherine, the realtor. Each had her own version of the same story. Ryan Morrison, consummate liar and manipulator. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I opened it to find Layla standing there with a bottle of champagne and an apologetic smile. Peace offering, she said, holding up the bottle. For being the friend who tried to warn you and then wasn't there when you needed me. Get in here, you idiot, I laughed, pulling her into a hug. I'm the one who should apologize for cutting you off. Water under the bridge, she declared, moving past me to examine the apartment. This place is so you, Myra. The you before him, but upgraded. Is that a polite way of saying it looks like a photography studio exploded in here? It looks like you're finally living your passion instead of someone else's, she corrected, uncorking the champagne with practiced ease. Speaking of which, I saw the feature in Singapore Lifestyle. Invisible Women is getting serious attention. I couldn't help the small smile of pride. The photo series that Ryan had dismissed had been picked up by a major publication, showcasing the quiet struggles of expatriate wives. It wasn't fame or fortune, but it was validation, and more assignments were coming in every week. Thomas called, I said, accepting the champagne flute Layla handed me. The divorce proceedings are nearly complete. Ryan's counterclaims were dismissed. Of course they were. He tried to claim you abandoned the marriage by leaving Singapore, didn't he? Layla rolled her eyes. As if stealing your inheritance and sleeping with half of Southeast Asia wasn't abandonment. I sank onto my second-hand sofa, suddenly weary despite the good news. His parents testified against him, Layla. His own mother detailed 7 years of affairs and financial manipulation. It was brutal. Good. Layla's voice held no sympathy. After what he put you through, brutal is the minimum he deserves. I don't disagree. It's just, I struggled to articulate the strange emptiness that accompanied my victories. I spent 7 years making excuses for his behavior, seeing only what I wanted to see. How did I miss so many red flags? Layla sat beside me, her expression softening. Because you loved him. And because he was exceptionally good at manipulation. Stop blaming yourself for his sociopathy. The truth of her words penetrated the lingering cloud of self-doubt that followed me despite therapy and meditation. I'd been so focused on being the perfect wife that I'd ignored evidence of a deeply imperfect marriage. His new girlfriend called me, I admitted, swirling the champagne in my glass. Layla nearly choked. He already has a new girlfriend? After everything? And she called you? He told her I was his crazy ex who invented stories about him. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. She found my photography website and reached out, wanting my side before things got serious between them. Please tell me you sent her a comprehensive PowerPoint presentation of his crimes. Better. I invited her to meet Jessica, Amelia, and Catherine for coffee. Layla's eyes widened. The Ryan Morrison Victims Support Group in the flesh? What happened? She cried. Then she blocked his number and social media. Then she ordered tequila shots for everyone. We clinked glasses, dissolving into laughter that felt cleansing after months of legal depositions and financial forensics. My phone chimed with an email notification, a gallery in New York expressing interest in exhibiting invisible women, alongside other female photographers documenting modern relationship dynamics. Is that what I think it is? Layla asked, watching my expression. I nodded, unable to suppress my smile. Remember when I said I might apply to that residency program in New York? The one Ryan always said was a pipe dream. You got it, she squealed, nearly spilling her champagne. 3 months in Manhattan with studio space and a stipend. The reality was still sinking in. They want me to expand the series, document women rebuilding after betrayal. If that isn't poetic justice, I don't know what is, Layla declared. When do you leave? 6 weeks, I said, the mixture of terror and exhilaration making my voice quaver. I haven't lived in America since before Ryan. I haven't lived alone, ever. You haven't lived for yourself in 7 years, Layla countered. It's about time you did. My gaze drifted to the wall where I'd hung my favorite photograph, a self-portrait taken the day I returned from Bali. In it, my face was makeup-free, eyes red-rimmed but clear, looking directly into the camera with unflinching honesty. I'd titled it Day 1. My mother called, I said quietly. She wants to come visit before I leave for New York. Layla raised an eyebrow. The complicated relationship with my traditional parents, who had never approved of my artistic aspirations and had pushed me toward the stability of marriage, was familiar territory. What did you tell her? That she's welcome to visit her daughter, the photographer, I said firmly. And that I'm not the same person who left for Singapore 3 years ago. Good for you. Layla refilled our glasses. To boundaries. And new beginnings. And to the women who hold each other up, I added, when the men we trusted let us down. As we drank, I felt the remaining tendrils of my old self falling away, not with pain, but with the quiet relief of shedding a skin that no longer fit. 1 year to the day after I stood abandoned at the airport, I found myself at JFK Terminal 4, watching travelers reunite with loved ones. This time, I wasn't waiting, I was observing, my camera capturing intimate moments between strangers. The elderly couple embracing like teenagers, the father kneeling to hug his small children, the friends screaming with joy at spotting each other across the arrivals hall. That last shot was perfect, Dario said beside me, reviewing the image on my camera's display. You caught the exact moment of recognition. I smiled, watching him study the photograph with professional appreciation. After my New York residency ended, Dario had surprised me with a proposal, not the romantic kind, but a creative partnership documenting airport reunions and separations around the world. Emotional terminals, we called it. 6 airports down, 14 to go. Ready for the next flight? He asked, checking his watch. Paris in 4 hours. Just one more thing first. I handed him my camera and walked to the exact spot where I'd waited for Ryan a year ago. Standing there felt surreal, like visiting a monument to a former self. I closed my eyes, remembering the desperation, the hope, the frantic calls that went unanswered. When I opened them again, Dario was framing me through the viewfinder. "Don't move," he called. "The light is perfect." I stayed still, letting him capture this moment of reclamation. It felt right that this spot, where my life had unraveled, should be documented as part of my reconstruction. Back in the taxi, heading toward Manhattan for our last meal before flying to Paris, my phone lit up with a notification. An email from my lawyer. Divorce decree finalized today. Attached, court's ruling on financial settlement and name change documentation. Congratulations, officially Ms. Myra Chen again. A wave of emotion caught me off guard, not sadness, but a profound sense of closure. I'd been living as Myra Chen professionally for months, but there was something definitive about this legal acknowledgement of my reclaimed identity. "It's official," I said quietly, showing Dario the email. He squeezed my hand, understanding the significance without need for elaboration. Our relationship had evolved naturally from friendship to something deeper, but we'd both been careful not to label it too quickly. My heart had needed time to remember how to trust. "In that case," he said, "I propose a D2 before Paris." The taxi dropped us at my gallery exhibition in Chelsea, where emotional terminals had been showing alongside Invisible Women for the past month. The space was closed today, but Dario had keys, a fact that suddenly seemed suspicious. "What are we doing here?" I asked as he unlocked the door. "You'll see." Inside, the gallery was transformed. Fairy lights hung from the ceiling, and a table for two sat in the center of the main room, surrounded by my photographs. "What is this?" I laughed, taking in the champagne chilling in an ice bucket and the familiar faces emerging from behind a partition. Layla, Jessica, my parents, even Thomas Sutherland and his wife. "This," Dario announced, "is your divorce party. Your official welcome to the next chapter." I blinked back unexpected tears. "You did all this?" "We all did," Layla said, hugging me tightly. "We've been planning it for weeks." My mother approached cautiously, our relationship still healing after years of her pushing me toward marriage at the expense of my dreams. "We're very proud of you, Myra," she said, gesturing to the photographs. "You've created beauty from pain." Before I could respond, the gallery door opened again. Eleanor Morrison stood hesitantly in the doorway, looking older than when I'd last seen her at the divorce proceedings. The room fell silent. She wasn't part of the planned celebration. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said softly. "Thomas told me about today." I glanced at my lawyer, who shrugged apologetically. "She asked to be here." I approached Ryan's mother, unsure what to feel. She'd eventually done the right thing by testifying against her son, but only after years of enabling his behavior. "I brought you something," she said, holding out a small wrapped package. "It belonged to Ryan's grandmother. I always planned to give it to you under happier circumstances, but, well, she would have wanted you to have it, regardless." Inside the box was a vintage silver Leica camera, beautifully preserved. "She was a photographer too," Eleanor explained. "One of the first female photojournalists at her newspaper. Ryan never told you because he wanted my focus solely on his career," I finished. "Thank you, Eleanor. This is unexpected." "Like most worthwhile things in life," she said with a sad smile before turning to leave. "Wait." I surprised myself by touching her arm. "Stay. Please." The celebration that followed was unconventional but perfect, my past and present converging in a space showcasing my future. We toasted with champagne, told stories, laughed more than I thought possible on a day commemorating both an ending and a beginning. Later, as Dario and I walked along the High Line toward our hotel, he asked, "Any regrets?" "About how everything turned out." I considered the question seriously. The pain of Ryan's betrayal had been devastating, but the woman who emerged from that crucible was stronger, more authentic, and paradoxically, more capable of genuine intimacy than before. "I regret the years I spent minimizing myself," I said finally. "But not the lessons they taught me." Dario nodded, understanding the distinction. "And Paris tomorrow? Ready for that?" I smiled, thinking of the appointment I'd scheduled at a small gallery in Montmartre, interested in my airport series. Paris, the city Ryan had promised but never delivered, would now be part of my professional journey instead. Definitely ready, I said, feeling the weight of my camera against my hip, the tool of my independence. Though this time, I'm not waiting for anyone at the airport. No, Dario agreed, his fingers lacing with mine. This time, you're the one arriving. At JFK the next morning, boarding our flight to Paris, I received a final email from Ryan. For a moment, my finger hovered over delete. Then curiosity won. Myra. Heard today was official. Congratulations on the gallery show. You always were talented, I should have supported that more. I'm getting help now. Too late for us, I know. Just wanted to say, the airport that day. I'm sorry. Not just for Bali, but for all of it. You deserved better. Ah. I stared at the screen, feeling strangely hollow. The apology I'd once desperately wanted now seemed small and inadequate compared to the life I'd built from his betrayal. Deleting the email, I turned off my phone and settled into my seat. Out the window, dawn broke over the runway, soft rose and gold painting the sky. I reached for my camera, capturing the light streaming through glass. Some moments, I'd learned, are worth preserving. Others are better left at the terminal, unclaimed baggage from a journey already complete.